Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jay, and I'm actually at this place called Bushkill Falls today, and I'm going waterfall hunting sort of thing, except I don't really have to hunt because they're just laid out here on this awesome path. So I'm taking the red trail. It's a couple miles. There should be about 8 waterfalls, and I'm going to try to give you some tips on how to get better waterfall shots while I'm at it. Tip number 1 is going to be use a wide-angle lens. Because I just like incorporating a lot of the foreground interest in waterfall shots in particular. It makes for a much better shot, in my opinion. Of course, this is always subjective. Got some really nice, beautiful boardwalks here. Now, Bushkill Falls is known as the Niagara Falls of Pennsylvania, they call it. And you can see here, you can see the red trail. So I'm going to take this red trail here all the way up to there, down, around, down these stairs, and all the way back. All right, let's see what we got. Looks like the water's flowing pretty good. All right, so I'm on the red trail, and now I'm using the wider angle 16 to 35 millimeter f4 Zeiss lens, which I did a video on. It's my favorite budget wide angle lens to get for, best quality possible if you're on a budget. And you can find them on eBay fairly affordable. So great wide angle lens is key. Check out this view. Now, when I say wide angle, here's the difference. So this is 35 millimeter, which looks cool, but look at the wide angle view. And then if I back up a little bit, I can get some more fence line in here to really bring in that foreground interest and so forth. So, just a quick tip there. And long exposures will yield you nice streaky lines in the water. You see all this stuff moving? So imagine like a 6-second exposure. That's going to result in some cool stuff. And you can see right there how that stuff's spinning. So imagine like a 10-second exposure there. That will give you some nice swirling action. Guys, tip number 2 here, you definitely want to have a high quality tripod. So I actually just reviewed this Manfrotto tripod. It's fantastic. You don't have to get a tripod that's as good and expensive as this one, but a decent sturdy tripod is key for those longer exposures. All right, so here's an example of the shot I'm going to try to take here, and here is the photo. Alright, so I just wanted to show you the settings on the camera here in the studio because it's too loud with the water flowing at the Bushkill Falls there. So anyways, in the menu, if you go into the shooting icon there, it looks like the camera, and then you go to drive mode. You can scroll over here, and this is where your HDR settings are. Now, you can also get to them by hitting this button here. That'll bring you into drive modes. But I just wanted to show you what it looks like in the actual menu here. So drive mode, if you scroll down, this is the one I use for HDR, drive mode continuous bracketing. Now notice on the bottom how it has the arrows. So right now it's set to 5 images, so it's 2 EV spread, 5 image. That's what I normally use when the sun is on the water. When the sun is not on the water, I can get away with 3 exposures. So I either use 3 or 5 in general is my preferred settings. Now if I just go back one more, there's another bracket setting here I wanted you to be aware of, and it's self-timer during bracketing. So you definitely are going to want to set that as well. So when you hit the shutter button to go to take your photos, the camera will settle for the 2 seconds before it actually starts taking the photos. So in addition to the sturdy tripod, that self-timer is key to getting tack sharp shots. All right, here's another angle here, and I just wanted to show you so you can see that flowing white stuff there, and you can see how it's kind of spinning around. So now I'm going to try to get a long exposure from this perspective. I also have the Nisi variable ND filter on there now for longer exposure fun. So we'll see what that looks like. Now you don't have to always go max wide. So in this case, I actually think it looks a little bit better at this view here, 35 millimeter. It's looking pretty cool, guys. There's another cool scene. And that's 16 millimeter, actually zoomed in to about 24 for this particular shot. Right about there puts the waterfall at the rule of thirds. There's another pretty cool view. Some pretty nice rusty looking rocks in there. Plenty of spots to rest if you want at this place, which is really nice. All right, so I'm right at that junction there. So I'm gonna head to the left to hit up Bridles Falls and then come down the trail all the way on the left there. That is where I'm headed to now. All right, so just recording on my iPhone here while I'm walking. I got another like half a mile or so, it looks like. Shutter speed is all about, when it comes to shooting waterfalls in particular, is, you know, how smooth, how silky you want the water to look. Now, you know, the longer exposure you take, the more soft and silky the water's gonna look. So that's just a matter of playing with to your liking. When it comes to HDR shooting, which is what I'm doing, I'm taking bracketed shots. So those shots get blended together, and that blending process affects the way the water looks. So you need to keep that in mind as well when taking waterfall shots. So today I'm going for a little bit longer exposures. So anywhere from 1 second to like 30 seconds, depending on the exposure bracketing spread. So I'm taking, now that the sun is out, I'm taking 5 shots and they're all 2 EVs apart. So we're looking at, you know, -4 EV, -2 EV, 0, +2, and +4. And so that's all the exposures that I'm taking for every shot. Now, that doesn't mean I'm gonna use all of them. It just depends, you know, because the water, if the sun is hitting the water at all, it like blows out really easily. So I wanna make sure I can protect those highlights. And that's why I'm taking so many bracketed shots now. When I started off earlier today, I was only taking 3 shots because the sun wasn't on the water. So that is why I changed my settings. Now again, for the 0 exposure, I'm basically looking at anywhere from like 1, 2, 3 to 4 seconds is what I'm kind of aiming for today. But I will take some faster shutter speed shots just to show you what the water looks like with a fast shutter speed, which it doesn't look near as good in my opinion. It looks all rough, you know, it doesn't look silky, but it does look a little bit more accurate as far as freezing the action goes, you know. So it's beautiful out here. Again, these walkways are just so awesome in the woods. It's hard to tell from the video footage, but this is actually down. Like, these are steep stairs and I got a long ways to go, it looks like. All right, so another key thing to remember here is the variable ND filter for dialing in the exposure. So you can see here, as I turn the ND filter, it's getting darker. And that's allowing me to control the shutter speed, which is awesome. So just another thing to keep in mind there. Hey, can you guys see the rainbow right there? There's like a rainbow going across. It's really cool looking, right? Here's another one. I think this one is actually called Bridal Veil Falls, or it's another one called Bridal Falls. So I really like the character on the bottom of this one. If you look, it's got a lot of like nice detail there on the bottom of the falls. So let me try to find a better angle here and get some photos. It's a pretty cool gorge. Looks like I found the big one finally. That's the main waterfall. Alright guys, so I got the camera all set up. I'm sorry it's so loud with the water here. But you can see here I have the F11, 0.6 seconds, 0.5 seconds for this frame. And it's going to take 5 bracketed shots. So let me show you what that looks like when you're looking at the back of the camera. Self-timer, and then there's 1, 2, 3. And now it's going to get longer exposures. You can see here, this is an 8 second. Now this is obviously overexposed with the water, but it'll bring in all that foreground detail. And, you know, the detail in the rocks and stuff. And here's what the final result looks like. Alright guys, I'm recording video now and I have it in shutter priority mode, so check this out. I'm at 1/160th of a second right now, and I'm just going to slow the shutter speed down. Now we're at 1/50th of a second, so can you see how the water's changing? 1/40th of a second. 1/30th of a second. Now you can see it's starting to get a little choppy looking. That's 1/20th of a second. Now we're looking at 1/10th of a second. So right around there is why I like to start with the blur as far as how the water looks, but I like to go a little further. So here's what 1/5 of a second looks like. Now we're looking at some magical silky water. So again, just for this particular scene, 1/5 of a second is a good spot to start when you're trying to get that silky water look. This is another view from like another level up above. So you can see that walkway down below. That's where I just was. So now I'm up like another 30, 40 feet or so. Can't bear to leave. All right, that was a quick tour of Bushkill Falls. Stay tuned for the bonus part of this video where I show you how I edit these photos if you're interested in learning the post-processing techniques I use. So I'll catch up with you in a little bit. Thanks for watching. All right guys, so the software that I'm using is Adobe Lightroom, but I'm also using the DxO Nik collection. Now this newer one just came out. I was using the Nik collection from back in 2017, but I recently just upgraded because they just enhanced the HDR and the color effects and all sorts of other stuff. So again, this is the software that I'll be using for the HDR processing and the fine-tuning of the image after I process the HDR itself. I'll then go into the color effects Nik software and like fine-tune it. So that's what I use. And then I also use Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop depending on what I need to do. Sometimes I'll use Photoshop if I have to, you know, pull something out of an image or do some cloning, you know, things like that, hardcore correction. Photoshop, usually for chopping things out of the scene, for example, or just really hardcore dodging and burning, things like that. But again, for these photos, I just used Lightroom and the Nik collection. So that'll be linked below, by the way, if you guys are interested in checking out this software. They have a 30-day free trial, which is really cool, and it's unlimited. So you can use it to process your images for 30 days, and it doesn't put a copyright over the image or any of that crap. You actually get to use it for real. So highly recommend at least trying it. But anyways, let's just get right into it. So here we are in Adobe Lightroom. Now, this is the HDR here that you can see. Now, I used 3 frames for this shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the 3 images for the HDR. So we're looking at this one, that one. Yeah, so 1, 2, and 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all 3 of them. Then what I'm going to do is I just reset all this stuff so I can show you exactly what I did. I had the white balance set to 5,000, as you can see over here. Right here it says 5,000. So I'm going to change that to 6,000 just to warm it up a little bit. And then I'm going to click sync to sync these 3 files here. And all that's good. I'm just going to do check all and then do synchronize. And then all the images will then be synced with that white balance that I just changed. So the next thing I'm going to do is scroll down here and make sure that my lens correction is enabled. So this will correct your distortion on your RAW files, and I am shooting in RAW quality. So you want to make sure that's checked as well, and then you can sync the photos. Now, once they're synced and good to go, what you can do is just right click on any of the 3 photos. So if I just right click, what I want to do is I want to go to export. And what I used to do is use HDR Effects Pro 2. That's what I used to use, but I just upgraded to the new NIC 6 HDR effects. So that's what I'm going to go to here. Now what I got to do is hit edit a copy with Lightroom adjustments and then click edit. And here we are. So this is the HDR interface that we are presented with. And you have a bunch of different options over here. What I like to do is, depending on the scene, I play with the ghost reduction. Now, if you turn ghost reduction off, you can see how the water changes there, and it gets like a little bit more detail. Kinda. It changes it. It just changes the way it looks. So in this case, I like it with ghost reduction on. Now, you could see how one of the images is highlighted, and that is your ghost reduction reference image. So if I select the last image, for example, you could see how the water changed, and this looks a little bit different here in the foreground. So if I select this one, you can see now the water is in more of a static state. So the balls or the bubbles, the white bubbles here, are more defined. So if I go back to this second image, you could see there's a little bit more motion blur captured. And then the third one, you could see there's more motion blur captured there. So I'm just going to select the center one for this particular scene, but I just wanted to make you guys aware of the options when it comes to the ghosting. And you can actually lower the strength of the ghosting as well, as you can see here. See how it's changing that little bit? Pretty cool. So I'll just put it right around there, give that a try. And then on the bottom right here, you can click Create HDR, but you also have this chromatic aberration option. You can check, and you can look up here and like in the high contrast areas to see if you have any of that. This lens I'm using is a really high quality lens, so there's really not much there, but you can also enable that and dial it in if needed. So I'm just going to click Create HDR. And now we are in the HDR processing panel here. And you got a bunch of different tools up top here. You can do a before and after, compare. You can do a compare this way if you want. These options up top. You can also show one-to-one view, so it'll zoom in for you so you can check your sharpness if you want, and so forth. So over here on the left, you have all these different presets. So you could just scroll through and click on, these different presets. Like you can see here, Deep 2 does a pretty good job. And there's just so many options. Dark, you got there. Structurized. I mean, lots of options here. So I actually have a couple of custom options here. So I have Bushkill 1, Bushkill 2, which is a little bit warmer, and Bushkill 3. Bushkill 1's looking pretty good. And remember, this is just the initial processing. I'm still going to go back in and use the color effects software to fine-tune it much further. So this is, again, just like the first step. So it doesn't have to look perfect out of here. Kind of want just a balanced image. Now, what I would like to do is just make it a little bit warmer. Let's warm it up just a little bit like that. I think that looks pretty good. I can maybe bring the purple up just a little. Right about there for the tint. And again, there's a lot of options in here that you guys can play with. So what I like to look at is the whites. Make sure that none of the whites are blowing out here in the water, for example. And you can change that by dragging the highlights up and down. You see how I'm like the highlights now are blown out. So you can dial that in like somewhere right around there. For this particular image, it's looking pretty good. But notice over here, it's a little bit hot on that particular highlight. So you can drag that down. And you can also add selective control points here. This software is super powerful. If you guys want me to do a full tutorial on this software, please let me know in the comment section. But I don't want this video to be crazy long. So this is like a crash course into how, I process. So basically you just dial in these settings to your liking. And again, this is where I have it. So you guys can just copy my settings if you want to, try to duplicate what I'm doing. And I'm just going to click apply. You can also click Save Preset, which I've done in the past, which is why I have these 3 presets over here. So I'm just going to click Apply this time, though. And what it's going to do is it's going to re-import the image into Lightroom, and it puts it right here. And it does it like on its own little page now, which is really cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click 2 to give it a 2-star rating. So this way I know that it's a processed HDR. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to Edit In. And I'm going to go to Nik 6 Color Effects. So this is the new Nik Color Effects Pro software. So I'm going to do Edit Original this time because I didn't make any adjustments in Lightroom. So I'm just going to click Edit, and that will bring up the Nik color software here. So now again, I got a bunch of presets here that I can choose from. And just to give you an idea of what they look like, you can see here, they're looking pretty good. You know, just like that. Right around there. I'll just change the brightness because I have my laptop is not plugged in right now. So actually I kind of like Bushkill 4 preset. But anyways, let me go up here to the filters so you can see. We have presets here which are built-in presets. Then we have all the different filters. Now these are all the different filters that Color Effects offers. And you can see the ones that I have starred. Those are the favorites. So all you got to do is click that star, and then your favorites will pop up. So those are the ones that I pretty much use for my images, as you can see. So now if I go to one of my presets, if I go to custom here, this is where my presets are under custom. So now if you look over here on the right hand side, I can collapse all these filters. All right, so here on the right-hand side, you can now see all the different filters I have stacked. So that's how I got this look, by stacking all these filters and applying, you know, various settings. So again, if I go back to presets here, we have a bunch of options that'll give you a good starting point, like this clarity bump, for example. You could start there. Let me just scroll down here. Got a sepia glow, which I really like the sepia glow effect. Now, obviously, this is way too much, but again, this is a cool setting, and you can see it's called the Midnight plugin. Over here on the right, that's what it applied. It pretty much put a Midnight plugin, and you can just lower the opacity down to just get a little bit of that glow. See right here? Put it at like 75 or so, and it'll give you that glow. So that's a cool one that I like using, and that's why that one is in my stack. You got a soft and grainy. You got a summer one here. Like, this looks pretty good right out of the gate. So if I go back to custom here, I'm just going to go to, let's see, Bushkill 5, Bushkill 4. I like Bushkill 4. And then again, if you look at my stack over here, you could see I got tonal contrast. You could dial all this stuff in. I could back that off a little bit. You got opacity here, and you can see how that dials it in. So it's a little too much there when it's at 100. Just dial it in with this slider here for the opacity. Something like that is looking pretty good. And detail extractor, again, I could turn that on and off with these checkboxes, like so, and you can dial in the power. So I have detail extractor at 10. I could lower that to 8, or I could just use this opacity slider here to dial it in even better. And you got saturation, all sorts of options there as well. So I'm just going to click apply here. And again, guys, like I said, I could spend hours probably showing you how the software works. So I just wanted to give you a quick crash course into the processing methods that I use. And as you can see, this software is incredible. It makes it really easy, especially once you have a preset set up. You can just click that preset and bang out, you know, all your images and just dial in each image as needed. All right, so if I just go back up into my folder here, you could see this is where the image is saved. So now this is the image that I already processed, and this is the new one that I just processed. So you could see this one's much warmer than this one. This one's more cool, a lot more green going on. This one I went for a much warmer look. So this is a lot of fun. Just play around. And now that I'm in Lightroom here, I can just go in and just fine tune it. So I could now just cool this off a little bit by dragging it towards the blues just a touch. I could then go down to the hue saturation slider, click this little button here, and then click on the water, and I can drag down, and that will suck out the blue from the water. You can see here how it's just dragging the blue out just a little bit, right about there. Also add just a little bit of dehaze, which will just bump up the contrast a little bit. So something like that is looking really good, in my opinion. Now again, this is my original edit. And now this is my secondary edit. So I can go in and then go into Photoshop even and play with this more. But that's looking pretty darn good in my opinion for this purpose. So all right guys, that about wraps up this video. Again, if you guys want me to do more detailed editing, post-processing stuff, just let me know and I can drill down and show you more on that. But I just wanted to give you a quick crash course into editing waterfall shots with HDR photography in particular, because the water is often extremely bright and the shadows are really dark, and it's hard to get a really good waterfall shot with just one frame unless the lighting is absolutely perfect. Then of course you can do that, but it's rare that the water and the lighting is absolutely perfect. So I just wanted to show you how this all works and how I like to, you know, go about doing this sort of stuff. So again, I really appreciate you guys watching my video. If you found this video valuable, if you can give me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. And it would be super cool if you hit that subscribe button as well. All right guys, I'll catch up with you next time. Have a great day. Take care.